I'd like to introduce you to the coach of the current double world champions and Rio Olympic gold medalist of the rugby team, the rugby sevens team for Fiji. His name is Ben Ryan, and he's here with me in the studio. Ben, thanks for being here.
Jay, it's a pleasure, absolute pleasure.
No, it's great. Well, it's the first time I believe I've actually had someone sitting next to me with the British accent as well. So
Yeah.
you've got double. I know the audience loves it. So thank you. Anyway, I hope you guys are going to enjoy this. But Ben, thanks so much for being here. And you know, your success this year at the Rio Olympics is phenomenal. It's being wildly covered in the media. You know, people are really impressed by this underdog story and the work that you've been doing for the past 3 years. I mean, how does it feel? How does it feel?
Oh no, it was an amazing experience for everyone, this journey that we've been on, and enjoying that journey for the last 3 years has been vital. With a group of players that just are so humble and yet so talented. You know, they really earn pennies in comparison with everybody else. Yet they play at this unbelievable level of sport that just blows people away and gets them excited. So we're everybody's second team if we're not their first team. And the Olympics was the icing on the cake for these boys, and truly an unbelievable moment for us.
I'm really interested in alternative approaches to success, alternative approaches to achieving things. And I look forward to the day where I don't ever have to say the word alternative again. And so I just want you to share what you think are the pillars for the success that the team achieved and what your approach has been to kind of creating this amazing team that's won all these awards.
Yeah, I mean, I think the word you used earlier, alignment, is just so crucial in success, and true alignment in a positive way where everybody is absolutely together towards the same journey and the same goal. And to get that effective, you have to have empowerment of the players, and you have to keep things simple. Sometimes setting up a simple framework is actually quite hard work because you have to get this collective understanding. And there's so many little things that we did with Fiji that doesn't cost any money, yet other two people weren't doing. And you know, we talk about that spiritual side to things, but there were so many little connections that we had as a team that we did off field as well as on field that brought everyone together. And you know, you go back to, you know, everyone was having fun, doing things with a smile on their face, yet also able to, when the pressure came on, they didn't suddenly fight each other or break out of what they wanted to do. They actually rose above it, you know, and they used that pressure as something fun and something that was driving them on. And I've never seen a team play so well when you would expect that the pressure might be doing the opposite to someone. It was refreshing. And these guys come from villages where they might grow up in a shack. They might be living still. They might have got a gold medal, and 2 weeks earlier they might be in a shack living with their brothers and sisters, you know, with an outside toilet that's a long drop, with a power generator that only goes on when they can afford it to. And then for them to have 900 million people watching them win a gold medal and not crack under the pressure and not get too much is just breathtaking that these boys have that spiritual mindset and that collective. There's a wisdom amongst them, and there's also this belief.
Ben, let's really dive into this now. I'm really intrigued by what you just mentioned there. This to me is a true remarkable underdog story. So in Britain last year we had Leicester Football Club winning the Premier League, which was a brilliant story in itself. But now we're looking at, you know, Fiji Sevens rugby team, and you're saying some of these people have actual part-time jobs. Like, this is their part-time job. Some of them actually have other jobs that pay the bills outside of that. Can you just expand on that? Because I think a lot of the time we're trying to make our dreams, our daydreams, our dream jobs.
Yeah.
Right? You know, we're trying to make them reality. But for some of these guys, they're working on the field and off the field just to survive and just pay the bills, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we got guys that were hotel porters, that were security guards at the airport, that are prison wardens, policemen, divers, work on the farms, sell vegetables on the sides of the streets. And that's all they used to do. And then they get the call up to go and come into the national squad. And suddenly their dream starts to become a conscious one. And if they get into the national team, that means that they'll also get offered better jobs, and they also get the opportunity to reach a wider audience and go overseas and earn a lot of money. So Yeah, you're absolutely right. That that they will have to bounce around to earn money, because we couldn't provide it. We had £3,000 or £4,000, so $7,000 or $8,000 a year for these guys, and they were doing it because they love to do it. And when I give them time off, I'd drive past their village and they'd be playing rugby with their friends, And so we have a phrase "velomani," and it means to love everyone and to be nice to everyone, and it was core to everything we did. And you could see it in action. You could see it that the players would come back into the villages and they would spread everything that they're doing as well. It's quite amazing.
And did you learn the language to connect with the players better, to communicate with them better? Because we see that in sports, that connecting with your head coach, if you don't speak the same language, there are certain subtleties that you miss out on. So did you actually learn the language for that reason? And how was that different?
Yeah, you learn 3 languages in Fiji. So you learn the on-field language, the way that the words that you'd use in your sport, in the coaching. And then you start to learn as much as you can about the other language. But the one language that Fiji seems to be so good at, and I think it's because of living in villages in large families, that the non-verbal communication. It's the only place in the world you could probably call a taxi just with raising your eyebrows and the taxi will come. And some of the guys wouldn't talk to me for 3 or 4 months because they were watching and they were seeing how I was. They couldn't adjust it. I'm a white guy that comes in as a head coach from England. They didn't quite know what to do. So you'd be speaking to them and say, "Hey, Sammy, how's training going today?" And he'd just raise his eyebrows. I was like, "So what'd you get up to at the weekend?" Eyebrows just raised.
What does that mean?
It was just like, he understood the question, and that was all he was prepared to give me back, because he didn't feel as though he was at a level that he could talk to me. And I'm trying to tell them, look, I'm at your level. In fact, I'm below your level because you guys are masters at what you do. To put it into context, all these teams have video analysis, laptops everywhere, guys coding stuff. I just give the laptop to the boys. They'll sit down, watch the game, and they're our computer because of their collective brains. It's far greater than mine. And so it was trying to encourage them to tell them that they're far better and brighter than they gave themselves credit for. And once you become and try and get them to be the best version of themselves, they surprise themselves, because if I'm telling them, this guy's amazing at what he does and can communicate this well, then it gives them confidence that they're really competent. And I think sometimes people underplay themselves as well as overplaying themselves. Yeah. And both of those things are not good. So I learned it all. First 6 months, I just took on everything. And culturally, I got told a few things. Never swear with them in training, and never pick on anyone publicly.
Was that a big change for you, the first one?
No, do you know what? I was a bit like when I used to be a teacher. The occasional swear word has impact, but those guys that use it all the time, it just dilutes things, and you should be able to talk well enough to not have to stick a swear word in. I didn't like it as a player, and so I thought, well, that's something I don't do anyway. And the other thing was, castigate someone publicly. In Fijian culture, you can't lose face publicly. But actually, that's a good rule of thumb anyway. What benefit is there to just pick on someone in training? How can that be a positive for that guy? Mm-hmm. So those 2 things, I said, nice. Okay, fine. I'll take that with me for my coaching anyway. And then you just listen and you observe. And I didn't want to come in and make big changes because of the culture and because I wanted to see what was it about. And then it was about gaining relationships and trust. And then once you do that and you start to win over the trust, then amazing things can happen.
Alex is asking a great question. How did you get people to have that shared alignment? What was the key to getting that shared alignment?
Yeah, that is a great question, because it's so hard sometimes in organisations where people are on different journeys and different goals. Particularly in professional teams, somebody might be on 100 million US and he's worried about his individual celebrity status, on how many points he's going to garner, on all those things that are happening. And to get true alignment, you all have to be on the same level. So we kept a really simple framework where we empowered everybody, we allowed them to be individual, yet they stepped outside that, they knew what the consequences of their actions were, and we'd never protect anyone from the consequences of their actions. As much as you might love someone, if they've made a mistake made a decision that's outside your boundaries, they've got to understand what the consequences are. And we worked very hard to have a leaderful team. So I guess when you're looking at alignment, you've got to keep things simple. You've got to stay on top of it all the time. And we got to the point where we used flying a plane as an analogy. So when a plane crashes, it's not normally because of one thing. It's because the pilot and the co-pilot haven't been working together. It's because there's rain on the runway, the flight's delayed. Your key fob is just getting in the way of a flashing red light and your plane loses altitude. The boys use that analogy all the time, and they would just tap each other on the knee and go, "Hey, Jay, you're eating too much for lunch, you know? Our plane's dipping. You've got to take a bit off your plate, or you've not washed your kit." And they wash their kit in their wash basins. You know, this is before an Olympic final, where everybody else is getting their trainers and their coaches to have all their kit done for them. They're washing and scrubbing it themselves. Keeps that connection, keeps that humility and that humbleness, and keeps them all focused and working tight as a group. So all those sort of things, when everybody understands what can take you away from that alignment, away from that journey, when everyone understands in your group that that's what it's all about, then you can get alignment. And if they don't understand and they can't see when you've been taken away from that, that's when you're only going to get alignment in small doses. You'll see a 5 minutes of a team playing this unbelievable game, and then they'll drop away from it because they're not completely aligned all the time. They don't know how to keep that altitude, keep that plane flying high.
What I love about all these sport analogies is that they're so relevant to real life. Like, you don't need to be an athlete to relate to these things. Like, we all have that in our lives where we feel extremely connected, in flow, in the zone, peak performance.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have that moment where you're like, oh God, I'm feeling anxiety again, or I feel nervous, or I feel insecure, or something's not quite right. And we all go through that. This is Klaus. Did you use mental training or performance enhancing psychology?
So in the traditional sense, no, we didn't. In our own way, yes, we did. So in the mornings we'd have a lotu in Fijian. It means church service, and you know, I'm not particularly religious, but I'm spiritual. And the boys in the morning would have a collective prayer where they say, look after each other today. Let's have a good day. Hope we do. They'll sing a song together, and then we'll have a hug and we'll go to breakfast. And it was 10 minutes. Now, a psychologist may say that that's not formal, but it's a togetherness that we have at the start, and it reminds everybody about being grateful and being humble. And at the end of the evening, we'd have another prayer that would be, look, everyone's in one piece. We've had a good day. Thank you. Sing a song. They might look at a Bible reading and use it to then carry a story about rugby or life. And then we'll have another hug, and we'll go to dinner. And in dinner, we'll be using our hands and we'll be passing the food over, and we'd be doing stuff together. And I think that is a form of psychology, you know, and I think that there is a meditation involved in that. And so, no, look, we did some goal setting and stuff like that's formal. But I never, ever sat them down in a meeting room. Anything we ever did would have been cross-legged on the floor, having 10 minutes, having a chat. And so we did it in a different way. And I think psychology is all about getting the right buttons and using it in the right ways. And there's no way I would have been able to have sat down and talked about the mental rehearsal in other channels other than on the field with them. And they did some cues. We had some cues. We had some tells. And like I say, their non-verbal body language stuff, their emotional intelligence is so good. You know, I remember if I'd had an argument with someone before I've left to go to the training, I'm like, I've got to put a face on here and almost be a bit of an act so that I feel good. They just tap me on the shoulder and go, Ben, what happened this morning? I was go, what do you mean? It's like, you're not feeling, you don't look. And I was like, I've done everything to hide that, yet they'll pick on it straight away. And that was an amazing thing I found, why sometimes we used to dip in the past and rise in performance. If you missed a tackle on the field, for about the next 2 minutes, all the boys would feel sorry for you and their game would drop as well. So they'd all be feeling bad about you, and you know, tries would come in against us. You do something wonderful and the boys are like, this is amazing, I'm feeling so good for you that we'll go and do stuff. So we obviously like that, but we don't like the bad stuff. Yeah. And if someone's felt bad for each other, we just had to turn that around and explain that the best way to get it back is to feel good about what we're going to do. So there was little subtle things that we did, and Klaus, if that answers your question, you know, I hope it does.
Yeah, and Klaus has responded saying, great answer, Ben. Hugging is definitely performance-enhancing psychology. I see Petit put a lot of thumbs up. Thank you, guys. Thanks for staring. Alejandro says, hugs. There's a lot of love for the hugs philosophy. People are behind it. And tell me about this. You were telling me about this at dinner, and Dee Blake has just reminded me as well of this story. You were talking to me about how did that translate to the beginning of the finals at Rio? Like that culture that you were telling me about, that friendliness.
Yeah.
And just tell me about that prep and how it looked like again.
Yeah, so look, before the final in the Olympic Games, this is the biggest game that rugby's ever had, the biggest population watching it on television. And so we were playing Great Britain. They ran onto the field and into the training field, and they took the space that we were supposed to be training in. And we were like, hey, look, no worries, in Fiji, it's saying an Elenga, it's no problem. They put all their cones out, and you saw their body language as they ran out, very uptight, a lot of shouting. The tone was aggressive. I walked into our changing rooms, they were dancing to music. I went out onto the field and I thought, do you know what, we're in game 6 here. It's not about physical preparation, it's just mental. And so they came running out. One of the boys was piggybacking the other one and slapping him, laughing and smiling, joking. And then when they got to the tunnel, I looked to one side, I saw the Great Britain team tense, frowning, and I saw our boys smiling, and not in an over-arrogant way, they were thinking, I'm going out to play. This is a playground I'm about to go out to. And yes, there's a gold medal there, and yes, that's what their dreams have been all about, but they were so excited. And I knew at that point, I could have gone into the stand as a supporter, put on my supporter's shirt and cheered them on because they were good to go. And within 30 seconds, we'd scored our first try, and it was just one try after another. Absolutely
amazing. Carly says, is it true you went unpaid for many months because the Fiji Rugby Union didn't have any funds?
Yeah, it is, yeah. I went for 6 months unpaid. First day I got onto the island, they said, hey, look, just one problem. We're not going to be able to pay you. I thought, this is a journey that I thought we'll just carry on going to. And so, yeah, I put petrol in the minibus to get the boys to training. We helped out with various other things, and that was just the way, you know. And I didn't want that story to leak out. It did. And I guess it let the players and the public know that I wasn't there for anything other than helping everyone be better. And, you know, we've talked about this off air, but, you know, I think sometimes you feel like there's a journey that you're on that you haven't got a say in, that I was there to help. I was there to serve them. And I think that helped get that point across, because in professional sport, it's often about paychecks. It's often about the coach being in charge. And my ultimate goal as a coach is to make myself redundant so the players are in control and they're in charge. And you want to not go to work and for the workplace to be an amazing place that's working brilliantly without you. That's your end goal, and so I work everything towards that.
Absolutely brilliant. Are there, 1, 2, 3, 4 things that you feel really defined what you were doing? And I'm sure there are. And from that, why do you believe that those are universal beyond just for the Fiji Rugby Sevens team?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think kindness was central to everything we did. And that wasn't just within the team, that was within the hotel staff when we were staying in camp, the cleaners, everybody. You had to be kind, and I'm an absolute believer that you can be kind and you can be ruthlessly successful. You can have both. You can be the best side in the world and the best company in the world, yet be kind to people and everybody feel that they're towards the common goal. The other thing with technology and the advancement of all these things, and with England, we'd have high-speed cameras, we'd have GPS technology, LPS technology, heart rate monitors, psychologists, physiologists, nutritionists. Didn't have any of that with Fiji. Not because, we couldn't afford it anyway, but not because sometimes simple is good. What gets measured gets managed, and it's about measuring the things that are key. And we'd only have 1 or 2 things that we measured that we knew would equal success on the field. And if you do that, and I can write down my whole philosophy and our whole playing tactics on an A4, if you keep things simple like that, then it makes things very easy to understand when you are dropping heights or you are getting your altitude right. So simplicity, being kind to people, being authentic, never allowing a conversation to be delayed. So picking up difficult conversations. And another thing that we talked about that I think again is crucial is the standard that you walk past is the standard that you become.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's something that you see that's not within your code and you allow it to drop off and just think, do you know what, I'm tired, I'm going home. I know I saw that guy be rude to the cleaner, but I'm going to pick it up in the morning. Then that's your standard. And we said when we went on the field to win a gold medal that if a guy missed a tackle or threw a pass that led to the opposition winning the game, it wasn't that pass, it wasn't that tackle. It was something we did six months previous or 3 months previous because it's a connection. And once the boys understood that, their behaviours off the field related to what they did on the field, it made sense to them. And as long as you give a why you're doing it and for what reason, then it connects. And often in modern society, you just get given all these figures and these facts and these measurements, but actually there's no connection. You don't know why, what good is it doing me? And are we just going through the motions? So some teams would have a 30-point questionnaire when they wake up in the morning, a wellness questionnaire. We'd have a traffic light, and they'd just go to the physio and go, right, red, orange, or green. You know, if it's green, it's like, I'm feeling great. It's like, why are you feeling great? What's made you feel great? What have we done to it? If it's red, it will be, okay, why are you feeling bad? And it might be, do you know what? I've had an argument with my girlfriend. And so I gain more information about them, and we unpack it and we share it with everyone. And if it's orange, like, I'm okay, but do you know what? The guy next to me, he's snoring. And so you have a conversation with them. But simple things can elicit exactly the information you want.
Yeah.
And again, in modern times, you know, too many people go for the stardust without having the foundations.
Absolutely amazing. I love this theme of simplicity and kindness coming through. They're such powerful things, and often simplicity is so simple that we miss it because it doesn't sound intricate enough. It doesn't sound complicated. It doesn't sound profound.
Jay, it makes people, it makes you almost, you know, think, why aren't you doing that? You're not professional.
Yeah.
Why are you not having 3 meetings on this? And why aren't you using this? So I think people are afraid to use it because it almost feels like, well, I should be doing that.
Yeah.
You know, that this is what modern society is telling me to do, to have this, to do that, to buy that, to be that person. But being authentic, being simple, and being the person you want to be, and being able to reflect on that and make sure that you're on that alignment personally as well as a group is really important, that self-awareness. And able to quite easily take someone to say, hey, Ben, do you know what? I don't think you're being the best version of yourself today. And you've got to take that, and you've got to be able to be thankful for that people are trying to help you. And again, too many times when pressure comes on, you have blind spots, you don't listen correctly, and you make bad decisions, and you've got to be open as well.
I think this is a good question. When you went there 3 years ago, did you feel that you were going to have this level of success, or is that something you didn't think about? Or was it just about, no, we're focusing on simplicity and kindness? And I know it's hard to do in hindsight, but can you remember 3 years ago what was going through your mind?
Yeah, I can. You know, in the first training session I did with the boys, and again in Fiji, it was a funny one. They didn't know who the new coach was going to be. So rather than think, I've got to try and impress him and get as fit as I can, they just waited. They just sat and waited, and they got unfit. And I came, and the first fitness test that we did, I won. And I, you know, as a 42-year-old, that shouldn't be happening.
What, you beat all the boys?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, we've got a bit of work to do here. But I saw the love on the training field and the excitement they had to play the game and their athletic ability. They didn't have any fitness at that point, yet their athletic ability and understanding of the game got them to a regional position in that first tournament I was in charge, and I hadn't picked the team and selectors had. And then we started from fresh, and we had a team for 6 weeks where we worked them really hard and were positive about everything, and had that rule that I would never ever say anything negative for those 6 weeks. And all I asked was their best effort every day. And we then went on to win the tournament and beat New Zealand by a record margin. And at that point, I knew, do you know what? I'm going to make sure I enjoy this journey, and we're all going to enjoy this journey because this is kind of fun. And I also felt that we've got so much potential because they're all driven in the same way, and they were all so humble and so grateful. You know, I've been with teams that if your plane's delayed by 15 minutes, they're all shouting at the manager, or they're not getting upgrades. If our boys have been delayed for 6 or 7 hours, it doesn't matter for them. You know, they're just grateful that they're on the trip. You know, I've been with boys that have never been in a lift before, and they're like, well, what do I do here? You know, and they're smiling and they're enjoying life. And you know, some of the videos I've seen with you, when you talk about enjoying the small things, the beautiful things, they definitely do that. You know, and I think almost immediately, forget about the finances and everything else. I knew that this was going to be a fairly spectacular and magical journey.
It's unbelievable. That's so great to hear that, just when you're talking about that gratitude as well, and just feeling privileged enough to the fact that they're playing on the biggest stage in the world, that they're having this privilege and honor and opportunity to travel the world and you know, play against these amazing teams. But these are the things that we do miss. These are the things that we don't recognize because we're too worried about coaches being on time and you know, being ever on time and all that routine. And yesterday I was talking about something that I call the greatest stories never told. And I look at those as being the stories of the failure and the challenges. And you have these great stories of people like yourself, the great stories of Claudio Ranieri last year, and coaches that are defying the odds without money, without resources. But tell me about how you dealt with times when things weren't working out, both maybe before the 3 years and also in these 3 years, when you had failures, when you didn't win, when the boys weren't performing, or does that exist first of all? Were those things there?
Yeah, I mean, look, we had about 7 months ago the second biggest cyclone hurricane to hit a landmass. You know, it's 3 times the power of Katrina, and it hit Fiji on Friday at about 2 a.m, and you know, it was an awful time for the nation. A third of the villages were wiped out. You know, even though we had 6 hours to sort of hunker down and protect ourselves, 55 people died, and players in the team lost their houses, and villages lost income because the salt water coming in from the tidal waves. And on that Friday it happened, and there was a curfew for 3 days, and they all came into camp on Tuesday, bar one player who literally had to relocate his whole family. And we thought, let's get back into training, because we were literally having to fly out to play the tournament that weekend. And we tried to get them to train, and you could see they wanted to, but they looked like they'd come in from a war. And we said, right, let's just get you to sleep, let's get you some massage, get you some good food, and get things going again. And they had all this stuff on their mind about, you know, what are my family going to do now? What's happened to my uncle or my auntie that I haven't heard from for 4 or 5 days? And you'd completely understand that they, you know, when we were going to a tournament that was incredibly important, that they would have other more important things, you know. And let's be honest about it, sport's pretty inconsequential compared to everyday life. But they saw it as an opportunity to put smiles on people's faces in Fiji. And so we went to this first game in Las Vegas, and we lost our first game. And I could see, do you know what? This is going to be a tournament that it's not going to work out, that we hadn't had any preparation time. They're worried about what's going on. And they sat down together and talked about how 2 or 3 things they'd done wrong in the prep for that game. They talked about losing altitude, and they corrected it themselves. They got it right, and they went on and won the tournament. And it shows you mental resilience and mental resolve about learning from failure and learning from things that are going wrong, and be able to use it as a positive to help people. I'm an absolute believer that you have to fail, and you have to fail lots and lots of times. And previous to Fiji, I did that a lot with England, you know, and there were times that you didn't feel you were being authentic. You were being ground down by the man, maybe. You know, you were being into this corporation that was chipping away, and before you knew it, you looked up from bird's eye view, and you're like, I'm no longer what I'm good at. I was brought in because I was different, creative, positive, and you get chipped away, and you learn lessons about that. And then I put a real focus on awareness, about trying to be the best version I could and being authentic. And then when I got to Fiji, I was allowed to just do things my way. And I had a team that wanted to do things that way as well. And I mean, failure should drive you on, you know, and absolutely imperative to any successes is probably having lots of failure in the past.
Yeah, and I love that example as well. I mean, I don't love it because of how badly it affected people, but it shows that sometimes your failures will be totally outside of your control.
Yeah.
As in the thing that causes a challenge. I mean, like tsunamis, hurricanes, things like that, which in one sense you've got no control over.
Yeah.
And they come along and you still adapt. I mean, that just requires so much depth from all the players. Rainey's asking this great question here. She says, what are your personal practices to help you stay on your game as a coach? How do you take care of yourself in order to be a great leader?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Diet's very important. So making sure, you know, the simple things, I'm getting good night's sleep and I'm hydrating well. I'm not having sugars in my diet. And so I'm being consistent and having as much energy as I can. And I'll always send a message to everybody around me. They're very aware now that if they feel my behaviour is not authentic, or the pressure, because sometimes the pressure comes on and you don't realise. You might be saying, yeah, I'm okay, you know, I'm fine, I'm not under pressure. And everybody else can see that you know, that it's affecting you. So you need people around you that don't feel threatened and can just go, hey, Ben, do you know what? Just have a think about what's happening at the moment to you, to keep you again aligned on your journey. So that self-awareness is incredibly important. I try and take time out in the day to, you know, I haven't yet got to the point where I can meditate for long periods, but I can spend 5, 10, 15 minutes doing that to get some breathing exercises in, to drop into hopefully a clever level of thinking so that I'm making sensible decisions. And try to be the best version as I can, and understand that doesn't always happen. You have your bad days and your good days.
Yeah, definitely. Tricia says, great live session. Really enjoy watching heartfelt stories. Thank you for sharing them. There's a lot of questions here, Ben, actually, which I wanted to take at the end, but we'll take them now because so many people online asking questions, sending their love. They're saying, what's next for you?
Oh.
Like, what are you inspired to do? And what's next for the Fiji Sevens team as well?
Well, I think we'll probably all agree, you know, the story with Fiji has been such an amazing one and part of my life. And you know, they gave me chiefly status in Fiji, and it's a place that I'm going to always come back to, and I'm missing already. I miss the pace of life, I miss the love from the people. And so to have a challenge like that, to have something like that next, it's hard to find.
Yeah.
And so I'm enjoying continuing my professional development, meeting people like you, and we've got other friends that I've met here in New York that have been quite incredible, spending time with other organisations. And the moment you stop learning is the moment that you'll start failing. And that's the journey I'm on at the moment, and I'm picking up some consultancies here and there and doing stuff. And when the next challenge comes that really, you know, you think you can make a difference, then I'll take it. But I'm in no rush at the moment, and I'm taking a breath, I guess, and just trying to get better at all the things that hopefully I can still improve upon.
Yeah, I think that's really nice to see as well, that we wait for the right challenges, there are moments of patience, there's time in between, and it's not that in this world oriented by success and achievement that you're just constantly chasing the next thing now and the next thing, but actually there's a time for reflection, recollection, re-navigating, whatever that may be, even after such success.
Happiness,
you know,
we all forget about it, but it's why we all, you know, it's what we all just, you know, it's what I want, to be happy and to make other people happy, and so it's a journey, you know, and you got to enjoy it.
Yeah, awesome. We've got a question here saying, what are your top 5 favourite things about Fiji?
Oh, the people are number 1, 2 and 3 for sure. Because we talk about that hugging, and you know, I've seen teams that have tried to manufacture it. So I'll see a team beforehand, and you know, you're so close with all these other teams, and sometimes share changing rooms. The hugs won't be authentic, you know. And with us, you know, that the head will go into the shoulder. You know, you'll feel it. It's a hug, you know. And the people in Fiji are so beautiful in that respect that, you know, that we talk about that, the cyclone, and people lost everything. And they would just say, do you know what, we didn't have much to start with, so we'll just build again. Now, that's a great outlook. They're not looking for their latest iPhone or what they can get hold of. They're about community, about relationships, about happiness and simple things. And so I miss that about Fiji, about the people. Obviously, I miss the sunshine and the fresh coconuts in the mornings. But I think, you know, you can look at paradise, and Fiji's certainly a place that's beautiful, but the people make it, and the villages make it, and the pace of life makes it, and having that ability to just enjoy life on a day-to-day basis with simple things. I miss my Thursdays going for curry in the village with friends, where we all gather around, we all hold hands, the kids will all be singing a song, and then we use our hands again, and we have our curries. And for me, that was my most pleasurable part of the week. When I knew on Thursday night I had that, and yeah, I miss that. You know, London, New York, there's pockets of community, but nothing like the villages that exist in the Pacific.
How alien was that for you, moving from Britain? Because that's not, you know, obviously I'm from London too, and that's something you'd never hear about. And if you heard about it, people would be laughing about something like that. Like, you know, people take the mick out of you for doing that.
Yeah.
But how alien was it for you, or as opposed to you actually thought, oh, actually this feels more natural to than what I had at home? Like, not specifically in the sports sense, just culturally.
I think there was a moment at the start where it's so different that you're a bit taken aback by it. But I just had a look and I observed and I went along with it. And you know, another important thing to have in your head all the time is to just try and say yes more than no. You know? And so if someone invites you to dinner in the village, you say yes. So you want to go for a goat curry? Yeah, I will. And you get used to all the various traditions, and yeah, it ended up becoming really easy. And actually what I miss the most is that ability to have a simple life that you enjoy, that you're not worried about, you know, missing the latest episode of whatever's on, everyone's talking about in the office, or going to the poshest restaurant. It's about enjoying people's company and just being able to walk into someone's house without being invited and sit down, have a cup of tea and talk and laugh. And I've never been with a group of players that have laughed as much as the team laugh. And they will never take the mickey out of each other. Something that happens in sport a lot is this banter, and it's negative banter. It's a form of bullying sometimes. If the boys ever do anything like that, it's to take the mickey out of themselves, you know, and that self-awareness and being able to be like that. We would be roaring around with laughter at the simplest things, and yeah, I miss that.
Unbelievable, lots of things being missed there. And
Yeah.
just to kind of give people the full picture of the story of those who don't know. So you went from starting your career there, not even being paid, and now you have a plot of land, and you're a chief in Fiji. Just tell us a bit about that so that the viewers understand.
I started off, you're right, and wasn't sure what was going to happen, and previous coaches that had lost tournaments would, you know, their house could be stoned by supporters that were fanatical about wanting to win. And I'm lucky that I had some success. I had an amazing group of players and a management group around me that were beautiful people. I got to the point where everything was successful at the end, and the Saruan province that I was living in decided to give me chiefly status. So you go to an area, a field that we trained on, and local women were there. One of them had a whale's tooth. She had to rush towards the chief. I had to grab her and grab the whale's tooth before she got to the chief, and then we could start the ceremony. And I was wearing my sulu, my skirt, and barefoot. You know, I'd been barefoot in Fiji for the last 2 months I was there. And that connection with the ground as well, without wanting to get too hippie, is again something I miss.
It's scientifically proven as well.
I miss it. I could go and see the Prime Minister or the President, and you're barefoot, and no one's worried. And so you get the whale's tooth, and then part of that was giving me some land. So got three acres, some beach and some rising up into the forest, and we'll put a yoga and a surf retreat there, and obviously employed the local village, and then profits will go back into the village and be our chance to me stay connected with Fiji, and also hopefully help on a very tiny level.
Me personally, just hearing you speak, it just totally humanizes sporting success. Like, I'm listening to you speak and I'm just thinking, I don't feel like we're talking about sport. I don't even feel like we're talking about achievement. We're just talking about being human.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful to see that being the source or the underpinning values of success that you've seen. Are there any other messages or anything you feel like you want to say to the audience that we haven't covered, or anything that you want to share, Ben, that you want to leave the audience with today?
No, I think it's the common thought that we're having, that, you know, stick to your principles, you know, work your plan and plan your work, but make sure that you remind yourself that kindness to each other is so integral to day-to-day life, and that is not divorced from success. The two can be hand in hand. It doesn't mean you're soft or you can't make tough decisions. In fact, you probably can as a result of being kind. And if it's one thing that I want to pass on, it's having a simple life, being very, very grateful for what you've been given, and And to know that in sporting terms, at the highest level, and so you take that as business at the highest level, keep kindness and all the things around that and mindfulness at the very top of the agenda all the time, and keep reflecting on that.
I'd like to express my gratitude, massive honour and a massive sincere thanks to Ben for coming on the show today to speak to all of us. And I really hope that he'll do it again next year. And I know there's books in the process and lots of writing going on, so we'd love to have you back. Ben, thank you so much.
No, Jay, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
thank you.
No,
thank
brilliant.
you.
Thank you so much. Take care, guys. Oh, say that again.
Vinaka,
Vinaka,
thank you.
Vinaka, there you go. Take care, guys. See you soon.